got that right. Last night, so we had a meeting on day 17, I believe, in the evening. But I had some issues with the medication I was having. The doctor told me something which wasn't true, and I think I took too much of the medication. Anyway, my stomach was not doing well. And so unfortunately, even though Mara was available, I was trying to like keep fighting and keep going, but it was just not possible. And yet again, like I think that LA London time difference is something that we need to work out. Also, Mars working, I've got my master's, so we're all kind of balancing other responsibilities. But we did manage to go through Butcher's character, which was lovely in that meeting, and then we started going through other Mauer's and Kay's character, and Mara felt like, oh yeah, so in the end she was like, I think I'll do some plot points. So I misunderstood that, meaning that she's going to look at drafting the plot points of all the other characters that were missing. But the following morning, I was able to. I saw that she referred to the Mara character. So then, because I had some ADHD medication left, which was lovely, I was able to focus quite well, and so I didn't have an issue in like being able to really dig deep into like what is the meatiness of this character, what are the wants and needs. And I definitely think that having had trained as an actress, you really understand a character deeply and what really makes for an interesting character, in my opinion. I also think that whenever I've had to think of a character that is sort of inspired by me, I think it just kind of falls flat. That's just been my personal experience. I think it could easily be that things happen to them, which is a passive character, terrible. That was more in the past. And nowadays, I think I don't have that issue anymore, but I think for whatever reason, that was a situation that we were in. So I was more than happy to be able to go through that morning and just like really fill in the meat of why is this character in the UK, and like why what's the relationship, what's the beef between them, what are the different plot points in the season. I look forward to doing that with the rest of the characters. I think what I asked Tamara, so we were able to chat last night a little bit as well, and I just tend to crash a little bit at night because if I've taken the medication, and in a way, like I'm more of a morning person, I have more energy in the morning. And I went over the first few pages of the pilot that I had rewritten. And in as much as it's a fun pilot, after the conversation that we were having with Mauer, I think understanding what are the different characters and their plot points influences what the pilot should be focusing on. And I still think it's a very interesting exercise to have come up with a different pilot, but I just don't think it's as useful with what we discussed of the different characters. So the way that I've structured our work coming up is we're going to finish all the character plot points. Then we're going to focus on a teaser or a pilot. If the pilot is able to be under 15 pages, then I feel like we can just shoot that. If the pilot is more than 15 pages, then we're going to focus on very fun scenes that can be the teaser that will give us an effective sneak peek into the world and the different characters, and hopefully, be an effective tool to showcase the show. And that's pretty much it. That's what we've got. I also met up with a woman who works at the Brit School. For those who don't know, Brit School is a performing arts school in Croydon in South London. Amy Winehouse, Tom Holland, a lot of famous people have gone to that school. And having come from a performing arts degree, I trained as an actress at Mountview, which was amazing. Having to work in the arts, you deal with a lot of rejection, and you kind of have to have a really strong core and self-belief to really endure and thrive. So this woman, Claire, is able to work with the school and provide support to the students, which I think is amazing. I would love to be able to bring that to NFTS. I was working on, right before I started doing this live, on the lookbook. I don't know if I can change. Oh, I can. Okay, let me just, there we go. Let me do the presentation. We'll see how it is. So, okay. So we have Sorry for the mess behind. So we've got, now this is not it. Apologies. That was for a previous thing. There we go. So I'm still, this is the one I'm working on. And present. There we go. So yeah, this is a series, Ali All In. I'm gonna do a more beautiful contents table because I think it's important for people to understand really what it is. There's this, like, the story behind it and the Thrive book. Now, this is the central character. These are the different unhelpful, like, coping mechanisms. So, like, well, some are helpful, some are not. So, like, if you do talk therapy or if you're just procrastinating, whether you try to eat healthy, whether you lock yourself at home, whether you turn to drinking, whether you journal or write things down, whether you go do sports or you're just, thinking and thinking and thinking and not really finding a solution, whether you do some craft to help you kind of process things, or whether you react to others and shout and like keep, because sometimes if we feel like we're a victim, we're not, yeah, you can lash out to others while thinking you're in pain, but then you're causing other people pain. So it's kind of like a weird situation here. Or whether you're trying to do some sort of meditation or yoga, or whether you have some sort of reckless behavior, or whether you turn to medication for like depression and anxiety. Now, these are the unhelpful thinking voices, not all of them, and I'm debating whether I can get away with having Broody. I love Broody. I love all of them. But just when we come to do a show, if you have too many of them, then it's hard. Okay, let me just switch the camera. So there's a movie that I'm not going to say which one, but it was a really high budget film and it had tons of different characters, and they all had very interesting stories, but because it was all meshed into one film, it just was really hard to care about the characters, because you're just like, there's so many, I don't know which one to focus on. And in the end, I kind of just detached. Whereas if it had been a series, even a limited series, then we have time to really delve into each one of their stories, really go on this journey and care for all of them. So it's very interesting to see, like, okay, in a feature, it's much more, beginning, middle, and end. Obviously, each scene, episode, and season, and a whole series, they all have kind of that beginning, middle, and end. But what a series can afford you is a little bit just more characters that you can care about. So these unhelpful thinking voices are negative thoughts that our central character Ali has. And so that's kind of like, for instance, impulsivity. She'll, have to be like, okay, like we need to leave now, or like whatever it is they need to do to feel better now. Like I need to go, buy a little chocolate or buy a little notebook or whatever it is that I can do to feel better. Or like catastrophic is thinking like, oh my gosh, like, the tube carriage that we're in, what if it like gets trapped into like between stations, and then like there's a fire or a flood, or we can't breathe or something like that. It's just like trying to think of the worst case scenario, because you're trying to like protect yourself in a way, thinking if I already think about the worst case scenario, maybe I'll already have like an escape route planned and stuff like that. Now, sometimes you think like, oh, but like that should be really good in essence, but the truth is, like, as human beings, we can't really tell what is real, what isn't. And if we're constantly always thinking about what could go wrong, and the possibilities of it going wrong is very low, we just end up living in this sort of heightened level of reality where we feel like we might die at every possible situation that we go into, and that's just so exhausting. And that's why some people think like, oh, like, or I used to think, like, how am I ever going to achieve anything if just going through the day is so exhausting? Because I had these very negative and mostly just unhelpful thinking habits. Then we have Miss Nope, who is like negativity in general. We might change the names, because my sister was saying, no, this is like, you have Miss Nope and Leslie, it could be like Parks and Recs. So this is all like work in progress. Please don't take any of this seriously. Again, so Miss Nope, it's just negative, just mentioning all the negative things, or like, yeah. Yeah, unhelpful. Learned helplessness. So this is very interesting. This is when you might say, or I used to say, for instance, as an actress, I was like, oh, there's just very little I can do, and just focusing on all the things that are outside of
Here's
your
what I found.
control, instead of thinking, okay, well, what is under my control? And sometimes it is helpful to understand, to just focus on what is under your control and be able to let that other thing go. But if you're only focusing on things outside of your control, and you're just like thinking like there's nothing I can do, there's nothing I can do about it, I'm just gonna not do anything about it and like be a victim in the situation. And again, these are not like conscious choices that people make. These are just habits of thought that we just happen to pick up along the way, especially if you're a kid and you have a parent that ends up worrying a lot, and that might have a positive connotation. For instance, if I worry, it means I love you. But in truth, if you end up worrying, you also like lowering your quality of life. And also, like, in general, like, our bodies just, if we're putting it under a lot of stress, it can't be that helpful. Like, it's not just that we need to eat healthy and work out and drink a lot of water. I also think that it's important that we have helpful thinking habits. And it's not toxic positivity. We were just talking about this with Claire, because toxic positivity is saying like, even though like I shouldn't complain, or I shouldn't be sad about this, like I should be grateful. And it's like, how are we going to fix something if we can't be real with it? So the first step really is to be able to, and like, I learn a lot by just journaling. For me is really important. So I write down initially what are my unhelpful thinking thoughts, because if I can't face them, then I can't get past them, or like be able to move on. So it is by no means toxic positivity. Toxic positivity is kind of like ignoring the present and just like trying to push a positive thing into it, and you're like, well, that's not really like, I remember this exercise of like writing down what you're grateful for. But if you're not tackling like your negative thoughts, then you're just like, I was even thinking like, why can't I be grateful if I have all these things and I say I'm grateful but I don't really feel it? So Thrive really helps you like actually like, I guess, get a hold of, like be able to manage your thoughts better. So Parfi and Noya, so we have perfectionist. This is just kind of the fear of failure, or the fear of not being loved, kind of. Yeah, it's just fear based. So I have to be so good that nobody will be able to pinpoint a fault and stuff. And like the thing is, that is to the degree that it is unhelpful. So if you want to do a good job, if you pride yourself in doing a really good job, that's wonderful. But it is more like if you have crippling, like, really horrible thoughts, because it's like, I don't deserve to be like a human, I don't deserve to be loved, I don't deserve whatever it is, because I'm not perfect. That's just going to, like, the stakes are too high. Like, what if it's just a piece of homework or a presentation, and it's not worth like putting your whole sense of self-worth based on that. And like, making a mistake is part of growing. So, and we are all we're humans, so we keep learning things. Like, what if you're new to a job and you make a mistake? That's just part of growing, obviously not on purpose. We're not meant to be like doing things sloppily, but we also don't want to be paralyzed in this fear that if I don't do absolutely everything perfect, it's not worth doing, or something like that. Also, like, we might not publish things because we are afraid that it won't be perfect. So then paranoia. Noia is really interesting. There's another unhelpful thinking voice which I haven't put here, which is called hypervigilant. And so I used to have emetophobia, which is this phobia of throwing up or having people around you throw up. Hypervigilance is like kind of scanning, yeah, your body all the time, thinking like, could I be sick? Could this mean, like, if you're having like a illness or something like that? Paranoia is more like, is the I mean, I have the book has the description for all of them, so I should probably just be reading that. That'd be more effective. I didn't write the book. So paranoia is about like, oh, are other people, like, if you hear people laughing in the same room, could they be laughing at you? Could it be that everybody is gathering after class or work and they're purposely not inviting you, or something like that? You're just creating like narratives that you're like super focusing on, like what other people are doing, and it might have nothing to do with you, but you just create these negative thoughts. And sometimes there's also like the confirmation bias, where we believe something, and because we believe it, then we think like we just want to see evidence to support it, because basically when we're kids, we build this these different theories for us to help ourselves understand the world better, because we're new to this world, we're new to this planet, society, and so by thinking that we understand it, it just like makes us feel better and sort of a little bit more in control. So we create these beliefs, and some belief systems are really wonderful. Like, I believe all children should have access to great quality education. Awesome. There's a lot of people that believe that. Or we believe that everybody should have access to healthcare, for instance. But there's also negative beliefs, which fall under these 9 different categories. Another of the voices, which I didn't put, which wasn't the original, is called black and white. So it's thinking like either I'm the best person in the world or I'm the worst person in the world. And it can also, it's just you're kind of pushing your emotions into like exuberance, and then like absolute grim reality, and actually like neither is probably true. So yeah, so black and white's not helpful to just like be chill and like enjoy life. And broody is when you are brooding. So it's like, say you think about a question like, oh, why didn't that person accept my invitation to like go for a drink? And you're thinking maybe, and you don't even ask them, maybe it was just in passing, maybe you'll never see them again. But you just go in a loop thinking like, is it because I didn't dress properly enough? Is it because they don't like someone with my accent? Is it because they don't blah 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 blah? And it's just like not helpful. Some of these traits are really helpful when it comes to like, say if you're an entrepreneur or a business person, if you have some qualities or aspects of brooding, then it can be really helpful because you're not going to let go of the concept until you find a solution. However, if you transpose that habit of thinking into unanswerable questions, like for instance, my dad passed away, like thinking like, what else could I have done to help him, save him? Like, to a degree, answering some of those questions could prove to be an interesting, important lesson for the future, perhaps. But if you indulge in that, there's just really nothing that you could have done, really. And so it's just that kind of concept, and you're just really genuinely just like torturing yourself. And instead of being proactive of thinking like, okay, like what can I do in the future, it's more thinking like, oh, in the past I should have done this other thing and this other thing and this other thing and this other thing. And it's not really applying the concepts, it's not really looking for a solution, it's just helping you feel worse and worse and worse. So yeah, so these are the descriptions. I don't know what that was, the time. These are some of the key characters. So we have that Butch, who's the guide character. We need, because this is a book, we need, sorry, I'm just conscious of the time, I'm gonna have to wrap it up early. But yeah, so Butch and Ali have a relationship in which they help each other, but Butch is helping Ali understand more about how to improve their self-esteem and like their life, basically. And Mauer is a flatmate. Mateo would be the manager. Again, these names, I don't know. If you want to name one of the characters, let me know. And I'm thinking of doing a crowdfunding where there will be options where, invest like X amount of money and you'll be able to name one of the characters, or invest X amount of money and you'll be able to, I don't know, like come to set or whatever. Secondary would be the love interest, Kay, who actually is, who introduces Ali to Butch. Yeah, and then they help each other out. And the comparisons, we have Jane the Virgin, because initially this was a show that had a whole Latino family. Nowadays, we're just focusing on Ali's life in London. And Jane the Virgin is a really interesting show because of, in terms of the comedy, having a central like Latino family and yet having a mainstream American audience, and yeah, the style of comedy, the style of kind of magical realism at times as well. So it proves to be quite interesting. Big Mouth, you have these characters which are called the hormone monsters, and Big Mouth has this, like, it's super entertaining, and at the same time it tells you about depression and anxiety and shame and all these emotions that you get to feel as a teenager. And A lot of the time when you're going through changes, especially as a teenager, you're like, I'm the only person feeling this, or everybody else seems to have a wonderful life. Like, why am I the only one suffering, et cetera, et cetera. So I love how, I feel like these two shows actually, yeah, specifically have a really interesting relationship between education and entertainment. So The Good Place talks a lot about philosophy and, yeah, goodness in people and stuff. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to do, because first and foremost it has to be entertaining, but I love how they managed to bring in information that is helpful and useful for people at large. The world we're looking at Latinos in London, because yeah, it hasn't been explored yet, but more than anything, it's their life, it's music. Because Ali wants to be a musician. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. That's all we have. I was just thinking, what other information I put there, but that's totally fine. Okay, that is 20 minutes today, and I went through what I've been doing in terms of the character plot points and what we have as the deck, because my plan is to be able to share it with the school, to be able to see, who's really interested in working in the show. I'll be then having meetings with people and kind of seeing what their schedules are like, and also, what kind of things and knowledge and experience they want to bring into the show, because at the end of the day, this is meant to be a comedy, and I'm very certain that you just have to understand the format of comedy as well. And like, I say that for myself, I think comedy is one of the hardest things to do, um yeah. So yeah, so I'm very, 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 very excited, and I think it's also important for me to look at different mentors that I could have, um because they might know more about comedy, and I'm just gonna go do that. All the best, and thank you for tuning in. See you tomorrow.